Welcome, everyone, to today's show. I'm Eleanor, and this is Eleanor's Elite Radio, and I'm your host. I am foremost an educator, an activist, and a patron of the arts. Hello, everyone. Happy Thursday. As always, I want to thank everyone who's listening today, and of course, always my new listeners. We have a very special guest with us today. I actually met him at Tracy's Lounge 2 Mondays ago at a mutual friends event, Joel Greenblatt. Everyone, I'd like to introduce Chuck Gillespie. Hi, Chuck. Welcome to Eleanor's Elite Radio.
Eleanor, it's a pleasure to be here.
Such a pleasure to meet with you. I'd like to, before we get on with our show, we have a very long-time sponsor, an advertiser. His name is John Maselli, and I'd like to tell you a little bit about this wonderful and honest man I've met a while ago. Again, his name is John Maselli, and he is a loan originator and a realtor. He is multifaceted, and he specializes in financial services for the housing market. Maselli offers credit repair counseling if needed, and Maselli offers many loan products, home purchasing, loans, rate reduction mortgage. He refinances to lower your current interest rate and cash out refinances to leverage the equity in your home for other purposes. John Maselli works with our veterans. He offers 100% financing with only a 10-minute application. Maselli will work with you to verify the status of your VA entitlement. If you happen to be an older citizen over the age of 61 and you're thinking about a home equity conversion mortgage to give yourself additional income, he's the person to contact. Again, I consider John a very honest person. He is a man of honesty and integrity, which is his key to success. Please give him a call at 321-266-0703. His NMLS number is 1555704. Again, give John Maselli a call. Again, his information will be on my website and my fan page. So give him a call. He's a great guy and very honest. Welcome, Chuck.
Thank you.
Hi. I want to give everybody, my listeners, a little background on what you do.
Thank you.
Chuck is a singer and has a CD out simply named Tribute to Andy Williams. Chuck, can you tell us a little bit about why you picked Andy Williams?
Well, to cut a long story down a little bit, I sang with big bands for 23 years living in the Midwest, and I knew I wanted to come to Florida, where we are, and live. But I needed to create what I thought was a show that had a commercial viability, and obviously there are a lot of people of all ages who live in Florida, but there's a large component of people who would remember Andy Williams very well as a lot of other acts that are represented by the hundreds, if not thousands, throughout Florida, trying to get the work to entertain those people. But I thought that Andy Williams was underserved, so I researched it and realized, he is completely. There's really only one other professional act in the country doing Andy Williams' music.
Right.
I'm not an impressionist. I wanted to be myself, but I wanted to tribute a guy who I thought was an artist of great integrity, extreme talent. There was a white-hot heat fan base that he had for a period of years. Mm-hmm. He and his wife and his family were the first jet setters, really, that we had. His career spanned the time I was 11 years old on the couch with my folks, to the time, television career, till the time I was watching the rioting at Ohio State. So much transpired through his life. And I thought, well, I could use his life and his music to not only chronicle 19 wonderful songs, but to use the songs to also tell the stories that we all shared about our lives.
So this wasn't more or less like something personal for you. It was just this is what basically you were exposed to from a young child, and you wanted to give him the respect and sing.
Yes,
because you really loved his music.
I wanted to show that people that the people of a certain demographic would really like, and because I wanted to come to Florida and do it. I wanted to make a living here after having a living for 40 years or so in television and in radio, and being a commercial actor and things like that.
Tell us how this whole process started for you. I know you said you were 11 sitting on the couch.
We
don't have to start exactly from 11, but if it's important to the story, I would like to hear it.
But during those times, the influences, I mean, being a baby boomer, right in the prime of the boom, I'm born in 51, mm-hmm. We were very fortunate, I think, to have these influences that span all these different kinds of musical taste that we now like. And it began in the late 50s when we're watching Perry Como and we're watching Nat King Cole, and occasionally we're watching Tennessee Ernie Ford and Pat Boone. We're seeing big band influence. We're seeing the comedians with big bands. And it was what everybody was listening to in pop music, and it became something we wanted to hear as well. I loved Perry Como, for instance. I loved that crooner sound. Sinatra, of course, and Bing Crosby, of course. Moving into the 1960s, here I am. I'm 13, 14. The Beatles hit. She Loves You. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I went crazy with the rest of the country over that. And it took me right through my high school years to be a great rock and roller. My garage band was the British Rogues.
I was just going to ask you. So you were doing music, of course, in high school.
We were the British Rogues. We're in Ohio. None of us are British.
What was the name?
The British Rogues.
Oh.
Yeah. I had like a Tom Jones shirt, and I actually had Madras pants, which I wish I still had them, and Beetle boots that laced up the back. I mean, it was what we wanted to be. Did that right through high school, and then another change. We have Vietnam. We have the changes in our culture, society.
Yes.
I go to Ohio State. We riot 5 days before Kent State. All that changes again. And then eventually we're in the disco 70s.
Yes.
And you saw all the changes
My
we've had.
era. Thank you.
Until we're now to present day. Back to the music. When I had a chance to do musical theater and did in my teens and later in my 20s and 30s, I was doing and being brought to the great music of Rodgers and Hammerstein and Rodgers and Hart and the great songwriters, Gershwin, Sondheim, and Julie Stein and the rest. Loved to do that as well. Had a chance to do that kind of performance, as well as playing those songs on certain radio stations I was working as a DJ. That then transmorphed into me doing commercial work and doing things like that, and eventually into television, where I was a meteorologist and an anchor for 20 years.
Cool.
Which I enjoyed very much and raised a family. But all during that period, I knew I wanted to sing, and I got hooked up first with a cabaret act in California while I was doing radio out there, and then when I got back east in Dayton, Ohio, became a part of a big band. And for 23 years, between that and two other big bands, I was pretty much steadily a big band singer. The influence of that, I can't underestimate to you. I can't undersell.
I don't think anybody can, really.
The songwriters, the great arrangements, the great charts, the great players. It all has to have an impact and influence on you.
Absolutely.
So I never got to Branson, back to Andy, never got to see him, but I know about all that happening. And I always knew with my Irish background and my tenor that of certain artists whose music I enjoyed singing along to, one was Andy Williams. Yeah. And I didn't have charts for him, so I didn't really have a chance to sing him all those years with big bands. But on the side, I kept coming back to certain songs and the love songs, the lush, beautiful, romantic themes from motion pictures that meant so much to us, and I think still do if you have a chance to hear them and recall them like I do in my show. So the process continued that eventually, after raising my family and being amiably divorced and wanting a big change in my life, what do I do about Andy Williams? Well, research him, read his biography several times, listen to the music, find the songs that I think would work, build a narrative, build a script. I do 20, 25 minutes of talk in a 90-minute show about his life to accompany the songs and take you on a journey of one American story, which is unique and which was one of a kind.
You did say, we were speaking earlier before we came on air, how Andy Williams was like a jet setter.
Yes.
And I was not really an Andy Williams fan because maybe I was a little too young for that. It just wasn't my shtick.
That's right.
But it was hard to imagine him being a jet setter.
Well,
because he had such a clean-cut American, straight-looking, conservative, hair parted on the side, little sweater-looking, happening guy.
He made jet setting with the Kennedys, because I have to kind of couple that with his relationship. He was a very close friend to Bobby Kennedy. Their families commingled. And every week, it seemed, they were flying to Aspen. They were flying to Hawaii. He and their lovely kids and his beautiful wife,
He
Claudine,
was married to the same woman, I believe, for many years.
17 years to Claudine Longet.
That's long. And, I mean,
And and she had trouble in her life, major trouble, was tried on trial for manslaughter, came back after they'd been divorced for years, stood by her during the trial, took care of the kids, just showed amazing integrity.
Right.
I think their love would have lasted forever, but he was a workaholic. When he wasn't shooting television, he was touring. And I think there were a lot of years there where he was not home and probably needed to be.
Right.
He worked extremely hard. He started professionally singing in 1935 and died just 5 years ago, and was singing right up until then. So if you do the math, I don't really know anybody that sang longer, 75 years maybe as a professional
How about
singer.
Tony Bennett?
Tony Bennett didn't start when he was 15.
See, now Tony
So he's
Bennett,
got a few more years to go to
he
catch
is
Andy.
something else, is he not?
He's totally amazing.
Oh, God.
I love Tony
Now,
Bennett.
him I love, and I saw him at the King Center as well,
Mm-hmm.
and it was no disappointment. I have a funny story about that. We were going to see him in concert, and we all went to Carrabba's for dinner. And there was a group of men sitting there. I was with my girlfriend, and we were dressed up because we get dressed up for the theater from New York. Of course you get dressed up for theater. You don't wear flip-flops and shorts.
No.
All right. So we're all dressed up, and one of the musicians had come over to ask if we wanted a cocktail or something to that effect. It was a drink or something. And, we were like, ugh, please, not now. And then we go to the concert. It was the band members. They were all part of Tony's band members, his backup band. So disappointed. We could have had meet and greets and everything, but I love Tony. I love the way Tony has evolved.
Oh, it's amazing.
From his crooner singing, to his Gaga, his connection with Lady Gaga and the beautiful old ballads that they sang together. So, it's
so much of it's added.
I love old timers.
It was his son. His son handles his career and it began with the MTV appearance.
Yes.
The acoustic
Unplugged.
appearance, which
MTV
was 20
Unplugged.
years
That's
ago
right.
now.
Yep.
And his son got that, and I think Tony was like, I don't know if this is right. Hey, we're going to do this. Put him in that milieu, and the kids went, oh, this old guy's all right.
Yeah.
You saw the Radio City Music Hall birthday celebration for him.
Yes.
I think most people did. The one thing that, of all the things that stood out, and there were so many things, was the absolute love in that room for him. And it was totally genuine, which I don't know would have been quite as genuine for Frank or Dean or pick another tuxedo singer. He is so genuine and so real. He's iconically, he may end up being as important historically as any of those other guys, especially for the people he touched. And Lady Gaga, my gosh, she tattooed her arm.
She tattooed
in his honor.
Benedito.
That's right.
I love her, and I love him. I know a lot of people not too crazy about her or think she's really out there, but no one sees the genius and the talent that comes from her. She's just
I couldn't
phenomenal.
agree more. I don't think anybody's better.
And besides the fact that she's Italian, and she's very close to her mom and very close to her father and supports both of them. And I think her dad has a lot of issues that she also helps him with. And I just love her to death. Love her and Tony together, and just a fabulous team.
Yes.
Yeah.
Wonderful.
Now, you mentioned you don't think that perhaps the genuineness of maybe Frank Sinatra would have been equally. I think because
just the natural adoration for the human being.
I think so too. Because I think Frank had a lot of outside influence.
Yes, and he wasn't always a nice human being. Tony seems to have always been one.
Because you know how they blacklisted Jimmy Roselli. At the same time, Jimmy Roselli was coming up with Frank Sinatra.
I remember how they did that, Jimmy, and then they got Vito in there too, and they give me an offer they can't refuse. No, I don't, but I love that name.
Oh my God!
Tell me, who's Jimmy Roselli?
You got to look it up on YouTube.
Okay,
he is just a dynamic Italian singer, just fabulous.
Sure.
And they blacklisted him very wonderfully. I mean, Frank had big money backing him and big guys, big names, big money, big guys.
Well, that's. Fortunately, I guess in a way, that was never an issue with the Irish Williams family.
Exactly.
From Little Wall Lake, Iowa. They didn't have anybody looking out for them except themselves. And during the Depression years, when they had to start and do, one of the wonderful things about them that I love is that their dad, who was a railroad clerk, and mom, who just loved music and could play, and they were very spiritual, they all went to church. He did not treat the brother